Kia ora and welcome to Tarmac. I'm Harry.
And I'm Matthew, and behind us we have the most powerful Volkswagen ID car in this country. It's the ID.Buzz GTX.
That's right, it is VW's modern take on the classic T2 bus. Come and let's have a look at this.
It was 75 years ago when Volkswagen first launched the Kombi, or the Combinations Kraftwagen. What it meant was one vehicle that could do both the people carrying as well as the cargo carrying. That Kombi went on to be known as the Bully, the Samba bus, the Westphalia, the hippie van. There were so many different names it was called all over the globe. It featured on numerous album covers, in movies and TV shows. Anywhere you can imagine, that sort of Volkswagen bus, or the T2, was instantly recognizable, even for people who, well, don't really know their cars. A fun fact, that original Type 2 was still being made in some form in Brazil until 2013. But as I said at the start, 75 years ago is when the Kombi was first born. And today, in 2025, we have its next generation evolution, if you like, which is this behind me, the Volkswagen ID.Buzz. What can we say about this particular model? So this is the ID.Buzz in its GTX form, which is the performance version. And why would Volkswagen go and do, well, a souped up version of a fully electric van? I'll show you that in a little bit. But to start off with, what they've done is, being part of the ID family, they've added the IQ lights. And as you walk up to this car, it does actually do a little sort of what they call a friendly wink, where the lights do a little dance and almost look like eyes in a way. As you can see, this particular model comes in a two-tone form as well. It's a unique colorway with the GTX model. So you've got the cherry red and the mono silver as well. This is quite a large vehicle. So height-wise, it's somewhere about 1.89. Width is just over 2 meters, including the mirrors, and then you've got the length, which is just shy of 5 meters. So it is a significant vehicle from that perspective. And weight-wise, it's much the same story. It weighs about 3.4 tons in terms of its gross vehicle mass. But as you can see, I'm standing right by the important bit, the GTX badge. So this is no ordinary electric van. It's meant to be performance orientated. Statement of that also comes from its wheels. As you can see, these are 21 inches, sporty looking diamond cut wheels, and these are the Townsville spec ones. What Volkswagen have done is make this a modern interpretation of the classic Kombi. So as you can see, lots of glass windows around, including this sort of little window which you can open up electronically from the inside there. It's also got these really easy access electric sliding doors, which one touch opens them up to all of this space on the inside.
And this being a lifestyle vehicle, of course the second and the third row are almost, if not as important as the first. And I'm glad to say that actually VW have put a lot of effort into making sure that these are very, very comfortable. As you can see, there are plenty of different ways that you can configure this to suit whatever kind of trip you're doing. Got me? You can have them very flat here at the second row. They lock into place like this, and then you can, as for the seats in the configuration that they are, you can slide them forward quite a bit to let a lot of space there at the back, or you can bring them all the way back and even recline them for many different configurations. To open and close the electric doors, the commands are always very close to you in here, and once you are fully set, you get access to the sound system, charging ports, of course this window here that opens and closes very easily as well. You get a tray, an option for you to put your phone in here and make use of all the charging solutions that you have, and of course also a dedicated air vent for each of the seats. And as you can see, it is indeed very comfortable and very spacious for people that are here on the second row. But as you were probably expecting by now, of course, it is always a funny bit to get to the tallest person in the team to try and cram themselves in the third row. And that's exactly what we are going to do right now. And getting that set up is extremely easy. Just by pulling on this tab in here, the seat moves completely out of the way and the access is really easy. As you can see, there is plenty of headroom and also knee room, even if I bring the seat all the way back here. It is a very good 6-seater or even 7-seater. You can do a trip with 6 adults, no problem at all. And even for those that are here in the 3rd seat, you can see I get reading lights, charging ports, a cup holder, and even individual air vents.
Now, while this ID.Buzz is a vehicle in its own right, it both takes inspiration from the classic Kombi as well as trying to depart from that and be very much a new age vehicle as part of the ID family. But Volkswagen have maintained sort of nods to the classic vehicle in parts. So one of those key areas is here in this corner. As you can see, the 3 slats are a nod to the classic Kombi, which of course had all of the slats on here for ventilating its rear-mounted air-cooled engine. This ID.Buzz GTX of course is fully electric, so it has no engine, let alone a rear-mounted one, but we'll get to its power in a moment's time. As we walk further around the rear, you can see that VW have incorporated the ID lighting as well, or the IQ light rather, just like they have at the front. You have these LEDs that run right across the back here. And of course, this being the performance model, you have that all-important GTX badge down there. This being a family van vehicle thing, convenience is really important, and you are likely to have a scenario where you walk up to this with your hands full of, I guess, either children or stuff, and so this sort of thing becomes important. And the tailgate does actually open up to 306 liters of boot space, which when you drop the 3rd row opens up to more than 1,000, and then when you drop the middle row opens up to more than 2,000. It's worth noting that this 3rd row of seats, or these 2 seats here, are also fully removable, and that again is another nod to the original Kombi or the combination Kraftwagen, where it's both a mix of lifestyle for families as well as for cargo. As I mentioned before, this is fully electric, so let's go and take a look at what powers this. Okay, with the charging flap open, let's talk about the numbers. So underneath this ID.Buzz GTX, or rather in the floor rather than on the ground, it has a 91 kilowatt hour battery. Now 86 kilowatt hours of that is usable, and what that does is send its electricity to 2 motors, so one on each axle. It is a dual motor vehicle, and what that means is it also has Volkswagen's 4Motion all-wheel drive system. Now the power in question, there is quite a lot of it, because this is actually the most powerful Volkswagen ID vehicle that we get in New Zealand. Yes, that's correct. It is a van, and it is the most powerful ID vehicle we get in this country. What that is 250 kilowatts of power, 560 newton meters of torque. You get a sort of predicted range of about 396 kilometers, and the efficiency is about 23.72 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. So it doesn't really go that far, and it is not that efficient, but it is quick, as we'll show you in just a moment. But before we get there, well, I touched on the fact that this car, or rather its history, has a very strong Brazilian connection. And well, it just so happens that we have Harry, our resident Brazilian, inside, who's got a little buzz of his own.
And the buzz that I'm having is not the acid-induced one. Instead, it is this super cute one here, because how could you not when the exterior looks this funky? And of course, the funkiness, as expected, translates into the interior of the ID.Buzz as well. Probably the first thing you will notice as soon as you jump in is how far forward the windscreen sits in comparison to what it used to be in the old Transporters. And of course, that translates into a lot of space. There is plenty of adjustment that you can get with the seats. Of course, a lot of headroom as well. And this space also goes all the way to the other rows in the car. This being the GTX trim level, it only comes in the long wheelbase version to New Zealand, but you can get short wheelbase versions in other trim levels as well. But then when you go for the long wheelbase, of course, alongside the space and the performance of the GTX, there are also a few other things that are specific to this trim level. You can start with those art velour micro fleece seats that have this interesting mix between the two materials and of course offer plenty of comfort in terms of heating, 3 levels of memory, and also massaging, which is of course super welcome. They also have these ratcheting armrests in here that should make it easy for you to find a comfortable position, considering that the car is quite wide as well. Continuing with the things for the GTX, you also get a Harman Kardon sound system that really goes across the whole cabin by filling it with different speakers, and you get a heads-up display that is the one that is the farthest forward that I have ever seen. And this being such a long car with such a long flat roof like this, in this spec it has this black headliner that might make it a little bit dark and claustrophobic, but then if you really want to spend the extra $5,000, you can get a big sunroof that should let a lot more light into the cabin. And then to help break the darkness that is provided by a few of those materials, VW have been quite creative in trying to mix it a little bit with different materials. So in this specific configuration, you get this inlay that goes across the whole dashboard and this sort of brushed kind of plastic, and then a little bit here that is like a faux wood looking thing, maybe a little bit of nod to the past of the Transporter, but again, it just really elevates it a little bit and makes it feel a little bit more funky. And of course, all of these things will also go across everything that you have in terms of the storage in this cabin, because it is quite well sorted in that regard. You do not get any sort of storage solutions at the top of the dashboard, as you do not get storage at the top of the dashboard, but just above the glove box there is one specific cubby in here, of course the glove box as well, and then the doors are actually two-tiered. So you get one part of it that is very close to your hand, and then down below you get big, generous door bins that will take care of all the stuff that you need to carry around. Here at the front, in the center of the dashboard, you get 2 cup holders that can be hidden away if you don't need them at any point. And probably the coolest storage solution in the whole car is this part here that sits in the middle, sort of acting as some sort of a armrest that you can actually detach from the car and take with you as you go, I don't know, maybe outside of for a camping trip or something. And then, as usual with a few VW cars, you can turn one part of it into a can opener, another part into a snow scraper of sorts, and then some of the storing solutions even have some cool nods and Easter eggs in here, including a map of Brazil. How cool! And then in terms of the technology, it is a very familiar implementation here that we have seen in other vehicles of the brand, which is a good and a bad thing, because we all know that VW got a little bit of pushback with a few of their choices, but it's really good to see that they're actually improving as time goes by. One of the things that we saw in the beginning is that we had those touch-sensitive sliders here at the bottom. They are still here, although they are now easier to interact with, they are more sensitive, and of course they are a little bit more illuminated, so it's easier to find your way around. And then around this is where you would find a few other things that you will want to access very quickly, such as the command for your heated seats or everything to do with your climate as well. But it's mostly controlled through this home screen that you have in here, that you can create different panes for things that you want to see all the time. As you can see here, we are looking now at our efficiency figures, doing around 24 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers, so sort of connected to what we had with the claimed figures. You can then also go to an app drawer that is available in here, and alongside all the other options that you will get in other normal cars of the brand, so to say, such as your drive profile that you can customize specific driving modes, or maybe even the things to do with your vehicle that will include all the things you can customize or see your trip computer as well. Probably the most important thing to do here will have to do with your charging ability, because you can do things such as scheduling specific charging sessions, or maybe even configuring your climate to be available for the time when you will start your drive. And many of these things will also be reflected in the driver's cluster that you have in front of the driver here, of course, assisted by the heads-up display that will be always showing there in the windscreen. But then for the things that you interact with using the commands available to you here, one of the big things with the ID cars is that you get the gear selector available in the right stock, and then the stock on the left is the one that is responsible for doing pretty much everything else. Your wipers, indicators, lights, everything.
Let's talk about the ID family firstly. So the Volkswagen ID family is a series of fully electric cars. They've got something for everybody, right from the compact ID.3 all the way up to, you know, the ID.7 Tourer, and of course the 4 and 5. And then there's the ID.Buzz. Now, while all the other vehicles are cars or SUVs or hatchbacks, what have you, the Buzz is a well, how would you describe this thing? It is a van lifestyle vehicle. I don't know how. It kind of has something for everyone, but particularly for those who have that adventurous gene in them, if you like.
Yeah, I think that if the main idea was to create something that was as versatile as what we used to have with the Kombi back in the days, they really got that going for it, right? Because it must be said that not too long ago we had this in the cargo version, and which had a wall in here that separated the storage that was in the back, and that was already a very good workhorse. And then they can also make do with the same platform to provide such a compelling lifestyle vehicle as well, right? That is very good looking, that reflects back on all the fame and all the memories of the old one, while being a very good lifestyle vehicle at that.
And the thing is, we talk about the old one, and yes, that has most definitely inspired the new one, or this ID.Buzz, if you like, in terms of its styling, certainly from, you know, a number of nods to that heritage that we've seen around. But while the old one appealed to people who, well, was more reasonably priced, let's say, for its time, and it appealed to hippies and, you know, those sorts of people, this new one is a complete departure from that. This ID.Buzz GTX is priced somewhere about the 150,000 mark, and that is a fair chunk of money to anybody, particularly when you're talking about a big lifestyle van that, you know, has a considerably sized battery underneath, 390-ish kilometers on a full charge and all of that. So it is, yes, in terms of styling and all of that, a nod to the older VW Kombi, but that's probably where that ends, I think. And, you know, that's without touching on the fact that this is fully electric powered and, you know, so much larger and heavier than the Kombi was and ever will be.
Yeah, no question. I think that it is very much still Wagen, but not too much Volks, right? It is a little bit less of an affordable solution that really doubles down on the image that was created over all those years to then become now almost an aspirational kind of buying experience, right? You go after something that will help you relive those years or bring back all the memories that were cultivated through the years, which is not too different than what happened with the Beetle when it was relaunched, and now with this, right? There is no way that they could bring all the electrification, technology, design, safety, and performance, let's not forget about that, while also making it as affordable as it was back in the day.
And speaking of performance,
it's rapid.
I mean, this is a near unladen, is a near 3-ton van, and it just kind of gets off the mark. This was in normal mode as well, and you can see it did push us back. It gets off the mark quickly. As well, when I just did that sort of U-turn around the roundabout, it handles, it feels a lot more nimble than it actually looks, and, you know, looks wise it is a significant vehicle. Obviously the square dimensions make it look even more sort of larger and more prominent than it actually is. But the steering, helped along by the power and the boost that you get, the instant torque of electricity, makes this just leap forward like you wouldn't believe. And well, why would you do that? Why would you have a performance van? What's, who's buying this? And well, that's a question you could ask, and reasonably so. But again, the fact that VW have done this, have applied the GTX badge to their 7-seater van, almost reminds me of the early 2000s, when you had this era where VW was doing crazy stuff like putting massive diesel engines in the front of their SUVs, V6s and their hatchbacks, all of that stuff. It reminds me of that era, as we were speaking about earlier, and that was actually an era of VW that many of us who remember it, and I can't believe I'm saying that, will look back on very fondly as one of arguably VW's highlights or high points in the last couple of decades for sure. And so in a way, it's nice to see that craziness kind of relived for no absolute reason apart from just pure fun, right?
That's right, yeah, which is what this car is all about, right? And I completely agree with you. I think that we have already seen in other times in the past when VW let their hair down and they tried a few different things here and there that really helped solidify this sort of image that they created over so many decades with cars that are now sort of cult icons. And this is the new iteration of what the bus is, or the Buzz.
So what you did there. That aside though, performance and everything, it has to be functional. It is of course a 7-seater family lifestyle vehicle after all. And from that perspective, I think Harry dispelled any myths earlier about space. It has got oodles of room in the first, second or third row, even for somebody like him who's supposedly 1.9 meters, but let's not go into that. But I think something I've noticed while driving this around is you do have to be careful in more urban environments, because it is easy to forget how large this vehicle is by the way it takes off and moves around so quickly, that this is a long vehicle. It's one that requires a little bit of extra thought when you're maneuvering in smaller spaces, and that can be anything from sort of a city multi-story car park to like an urban center as we're about to go into. You do have to be mindful of clearing the end of the vehicle. It is of course nearly 5 meters long.
But what really struck me on a very positive note was the fact that it is, we all know that it is not easy to make a super boxy brick on wheels like this look this stylish, and they managed to do this by moving the wheels very close to the corners of the car, and while using this very boxy shape still, what it created is all the space that we were raving about just now, right? You could easily take a very long lifestyle kind of trip with 6 adults and their luggage with no problem, so long as you are then mindful of all the added sort of footprint that you take on the road.
The other thing to talk about is electricity consumption. So yes, it is on the higher side at 23.72 kilowatt per 100 kilometers claimed. But unlike a lot of EVs that we have reviewed, I have actually been averaging less than the claimed figure at 23.5 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. So I'm pretty proud of that, I have to say, in a vehicle that is large and that, you have the tendency to use more electricity than claimed. Efficiency wise, it is doing okay. But another thing that driving around these urban roads has highlighted is the suspension. That there's no doubt it is on the firmer side. Yes, it's a GTX, it's the performance vehicle, but again, it needs to cater to a family, and if you are the unlucky person who's drawn the short straw and ended up in the third row, it's probably not going to be that comfortable for you in the middle of the city. Once you're out on country roads, it's quiet, comfortable, but on sort of more jarring bumps and things, you do tend to feel it in the cabin. So there you have it, the Volkswagen ID.Buzz GTX. Yes, there's plenty of nods to its history with the Kombi in terms of the little, like the slats, the two-tone colors, the badges and all of that. But that's about where it ends, because this is something completely different to that. It's much larger, much heavier, much faster, and a lot more luxurious, right, than that was. And at its price tag, it appeals to a clientele that's totally different as well. But the GTX was tasked with this interesting mission of being both quick as well at the same time luxurious and having technology. How do you think it's done?
One thing that is very interesting is that EVs have sort of commoditized the speed and performance, right? And that's why we are able to get a van that has this level of performance. But the cool thing is that it will still attract and get the attention of people that have gone through the years creating those memories with the old buses, and those that don't, because we just need to look around while we are driving it, the amount of attention that we get, right? It is a stroke of genius of doubling down on what made the car famous on the outside, while still making it super modern, luxurious on the inside, bringing all the tech and all the good things that come with the VW ID line. So yeah, I quite like it.